Okay, we're going to learn the Rebbe's Maamar in Chelek Daled of Maamar Malukit that explains the Alter Rebbe's Maamar that we just learned. So it's on page Shin Samach Gimel. Okay, the Rebbe starts the Maamar like this. Anilo Vedodi Rosh Tevis Elul. Anilo Vedodi is the acronym for Elul. The word will Lekut Torah, and he explains in the Lekut Torah. But Maamar Divrei Maschil Zera Shaychus the Elul. He explains the connection between Elul La'ani Vedodi Li Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li. The Rebbe writes in the Maamar that the Alter Rebbe explains the connection between the pasuk Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li and Elul. Not only is it an acronym, but there's a connection in concept. Ki be'elul b'sirusa de l'sata. Elul is an awakening from below. Ani Ledodi, I am to my beloved, meaning my avodah. U'b'rosh Hashanah ve'yom HaKippurim is v'dei hamshachim u'mayla l'mata. Is a revelation from higher to lower. That's the level of Vedodi Li. But this revelation coming from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur comes through the Sirus of the Lasata of Elul. In other words, what allows the revelation from above of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? The Ani Ledodi, the Avodah of the Jew in the month of Elul. He said, but L'cheira v'zeh she'elul Rosh Tevis Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li. Now the Rebbe is alluding to a question. We say Elul is an acronym for Ani Ledodi, my avodah to Hashem, and Hashem's revelation, which is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But the question is, that's not Elul. That's Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Why is the revelation of Vedodi Li, which is the revelation of Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, coming down to us? Why is that part of the acronym of Elul when it's not the avodah of Elul, it's the avodah of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? He says, because that even the concept of Vedodi Li is also part of it. The avodah of the Jew in Elul, Ani Ledodi, is also hakdom lahamshach, is the introduction and the prerequisite, so to speak, of a Vedodi Li of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But the Rebbe asks the question, nevertheless, tzarich biur. Ki mizeh she'eitz vav lamed Rosh Tevis Vedodi Li are part of Elul Atzma, is part of Elul itself. Mashma that Chedesh Elul is not only the introduction to Vedodi Li, but in Elul there's avodah of Vedodi Li. Meaning like this: Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li. Ani Ledodi is my avodah, our avodah. Vedodi Li is Hashem's revelation to us. So he says, why is that included in Rosh Hashanah, in the acronym of Elul? Because the introduction and what makes Vedodi Li happen is Ani Ledodi. But the Rebbe said, but nevertheless, there's a problem with that, because Vedodi Li is the avodah Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, not Elul. So therefore the Rebbe is saying, we must say that there's a level of Vedodi Li even in Elul. Because not only is Ani Ledodi in Elul, but Vedodi Li is also Elul. So therefore the Rebbe says we must say that in Chedesh Elul also exists the level of Vedodi Li. So what is it? Maamar, and the Alter Rebbe continues in the Maamar. That in the month of Elul is the revelation of the 13 attributes of mercy. Hagam shebe'elu ani ledodi sirus de l'sato. Even though l'chayra, how can it be a revelation from above? We said revelation from above is the avodah of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Mikama came sirus de l'sato shel adam, the awakening from below of the person. Ubefrat kshu rachuk melukus, especially if he's distant from melukus, is aidei yisayis and sinus keich mumayl. Now the Rebbe is going into, we learned this in the Lekut Torah, we learned that before it could be Adam ki yakriv, before a person could become close to Hashem, it has to be Vayikra Moshe. There has to be a revelation from above. Because where in the world does the Jew out of the clear blue, especially if he's far away from Hashem, is in Midbar or Sada, where in the world does he get this awakening all out of the clear blue to become closer to Hashem? So Chassidus explains, the reason for that is because there's a push from above. No person can stam on his own start getting close to Hashem without a push from above. And sometimes, like we learned, what is this? The Gemara says, a Basko, the Mishnah pick up is, but the different Gemaras say every day a Basko comes out from heaven, a voice comes out from heaven, and says, Shuva ban Meshayavim. Wild children, please do tshuva. Do tshuva. So there's a voice that comes out from heaven every day, the Gemara says, and says to the Jew, do tshuva. So the question is, I don't hear it, you don't hear it. I hope you don't hear it, because then you're hearing voices. You don't hear it. So what's the purpose of this voice coming out of heaven? So Chassidus explains, because this voice from heaven is the initial, the neshama hears it. We don't, but the neshama hears it. And therefore that's the koyach from above, the vayikra al Moshe, so to speak, Hashem revealing himself to us a little bit, that we can stimulate our Aveda, and then when we do our Aveda, it becomes a much, much greater revelation from above. So therefore, the Rebbe explains like this. When the Alter Rebbe says that, like I told you, the Rebbe rips apart every part of the Alter Rebbe's mashal and the maim and everything. L'chayre, if it's Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, if it's a revelation of Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, then it's the Aveda from above. It's not the Aveda of the Jew. Yet Elul is Ledodi, the Aveda of the Jew. So the Rebbe is explaining, because in order to have Ledodi, in order to have the awakening from below, there has to be a revelation from above, especially, he says, if the person's far from Yiddishkeit. For sure he needs a revelation from above. And that is the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas HaRachmin that's revealed in the month of Elul, to be able to awaken the level of Ledodi. Correct. But there's 3 levels here. That's what the Rebbe is explaining. There's a level of a revelation from above, which is a gift from above. There's no keli necessarily for it, yet. There's a push from above. That push from above causes the level of Ledodi. Like he says, a guy that's far away from Yiddishkeit, out of the clear blue, what's causing it to happen? So there's a push from above, Yigimel Midas HaRachamim, that stimulates the person to do Ledodi. And then you have the greater revelation, Doidi Li, that it becomes a much, much greater revelation because now you have a keli for it. In fact, Alter Rebbe explains that even the Maamar in Lekutei Torah of Adam Ki Yakriv, the Alter Rebbe explains over there, there's 3 levels. There's an awakening from above, Vayikra al Moshe, yes, that causes Adam Ki Yakriv, and then you create a much greater level of Elokus, or a greater revelation of Elokus.
So the Jew is a push from above to see the king in the sun.
Correct. And that is the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas HaRachim, which is a gift from above. Now, it could be, and we'll see later on, that the king coming out to the field is the revelation of Yud Gimel Midas HaRachim, to stimulate the person to go see the king.
But it's not the Jew who's coming to see the king.
Correct. It's a push from above that turns the Jew on to go out to meet the king.
Everything is pushed from the above. Without push from the above, it won't happen.
Correct.
Even when we
But now the question is, what happens when you get the push from above? What do you do with it? That's the question. When Hashem gives a push from above, yes, you can go to sleep, or you can do something about it. You can do the Aveda to waken it up. That's up to us. In other words, to give the mashal, you take a lighter, you go like this. Yeah, you create a spark. If there's no fuel, the spark dies. Correct? In order to keep the spark that you created, you need to have fuel to keep it. You need the vessel to keep it. You can get a spark from above.
is fluid a vessel? Fluid is not a vessel.
The what?
The fluid is not a
Is the keli that keeps what holds the fire? The fuel. The fuel is becoming consumed, and that's what's holding the fire. It sustains it, and so on. So what's the difference between Elul and Vedodi? He says, the Gilui of Elul be'ikrat kayach. It's only giving the ability. It's not that Gilui ma'ered Sa'adam. It doesn't actually awaken the person. It only gives them the initial state to be able to awaken the person. Okay, so there is Ani Ledodi is the Avodah of the Jew. Hashem doesn't get you to do the Avodah. He gives you, like he calls it, Nesinas Kayach. He gives you the ability to do it. But who's doing it? We're doing it. You have to capitalize on the revelation, on the money. The Rebbe says, now this is the advantage of Elul even over Aser Simei Tshuva. Even though Locher Aser Simei Tshuva is after the whole Avodah of Elul and Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, he says, the Baser is Yemei Tshuva, Prat Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hagilui, what's the revelation that of a Vedodi? Ve'efen Shagilui Me'ered Sa'adim, it awakens the person, and the Avodah of the person is only Teitzah Me'agilui L'mayla. It's only an offshoot of the revelation from above. But Ikar Inyan V'mayla D'Avodah Sa'adim, Avodah B'Koyach Atzmi is Ani Ledodi Be'elul. Meaning like this. Aser Simei Tshuva, the Avodah of Vedodi, the Avodah, the revelation of Vedodi, it awakens the person to do it. So then it's coming primarily from above. Elul is only the push, not the push, the ability to do it. So then everything you're doing is yourself. I can open up the door to let you come in and daven. Yeah? I'm not helping you daven. I'm just giving you the ability to daven. I'm opening the door that you can come in to daven. Right? Then you can have somebody encouraging you when you're in the shul to go daven. That's Vedodi of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. But then it's not so much yours completely, it's them helping you. Here they're not helping you. When you open the door to come into the shul to daven, nobody's helping you. They're just giving you the opportunity to come to shul to daven. The rest is yours. So in Avodah Sa'adam, Elul is greater than Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Elul is greater, as he says. That's the Avodah, mile of Elul, even the Gabbai says he made Tshuva. Because, as the Pasuk says, and Chassidus brings it down a lot, L'maisa yodecha tichseif. Hashem longs for the Avodah of the Jew. To give you another example, Chassidus brings down. Somebody could teach somebody something. Okay, you're learning it, yeah? But it's not your doing. It's not your accomplishment. Somebody's teaching it to you. Then you could take somebody that could take a book and learn it by themselves. Yeah, I give you the book. Yeah, I give you the ability to do it. But now you go learn it yourself and you figure it out yourself.
With all respect, this is written 40 days of Slichut, all of it.
What?
Slichut.
What? No comprendo. You mean the slichas in 2 weeks, whatever. Okay.
The penny campaign.
The penny campaign, yeah. No, in other words, like this. I can give you it's a very simple mashal. I can give you a sefer to learn. Yes? So I'm giving you the ability to learn. Or else I could teach it to you. Now, if you learn it yourself and you figure out yourself, what's a much greater accomplishment? A much greater accomplishment is not when somebody teaches it to somebody, when somebody is given the book. That's Ani Ledodi. Yud Gimel Midas Harachmim of Elul is Hashem saying, here's the book. Now go take the book and learn it yourself.
And grasp.
that accomplishment is infinitely greater. Because why? Because it's kaf shalei. The Gemara says, Adam reitze bekaf shalei mitisha kabim shel chaveirei. A person would rather have one measurement that he does, that he accomplishes, more than 9 times that somebody else will give him.
But if you don't,
if somebody doesn't give us the book, if you don't give me the book,
Elul gives you the book. Now do something with it.
but if
Don't put
somebody,
it in the bookshelf. What?
if somebody more knowledgeable than you learns with you, you can go more in depth, learn better.
Okay, so I'll answer that with a question of a Jewish. What's better? A cake that you buy in the bakery that hopefully comes not smashed in the car? You buy a cake in the bakery, a perfect cake, yes? It looks good, it's not underbaked, overbaked, it's good, yeah? And then your kid goes and bakes a cake in the kitchen, it's a little cockeyed, a little lopsided, a little this and that. What cake is more precious? According to him, it's the bought cake. Understand? If you do it yourself, it's not going to be as, yes, when the guy teaches it to you, you'll understand it maybe much better and you'll have a broader knowledge of it. But you didn't do it. Yes, you listened and you could have slept or whatever. But you didn't do it. When you learn it yourself, you did it. You accomplished it. It's not as perfect as the revelation from above, but who cares? Hashem likes what we do better. A father probably likes the better looking cake, but a kid bakes a cake. The mother loves that cake of the kid that's a little lopsided, a little whatever, much more than the bakery cake. Why? Because the kid did it. Somebody once asked the Rebbe, he says, I don't understand, why does Hashem, make us work so hard why is it, why doesn't he do it for us? So this guy happened to be an artist. Interesting, whenever anybody came to the Rebbe and asked such questions, the Rebbe answered him with his own field. The guy was an artist. So the Rebbe asked him, what type of art do you do? He says, landscape, fields, mountains. So the Rebbe said, how much is a picture? You take a picture of the landscape, how much is it? How much? $20. And if a guy draws it, how much will you get for it? He says, $1,000, whatever, So the Rebbe said, I understand. The picture you take is more perfect, because it has mamish everything exact. And when you draw, it can't be as perfect as a picture. So the Rebbe says, why? So the guy says to the Rebbe, come on, Rebbe, this is work, and this is in a second. This you have to work to make. So the Rebbe said, yeah, that's why Hashem wants us to work. Because when you work, it's much more precious than taking a picture of it. And that's the difference between the Ledodi of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur versus the Ledodi of Elul. Ledodi is a revelation that comes from above that stimulates the person to do it. But it's it's coming from above. He's teaching it to you. He's taking the picture, whatever you want to call it. When the person does the Aveda themselves, that's the Aveda of Elul. So Yud Gimel Midas Racham, that the Rebbe is explaining, doesn't stimulate you. It gives you the ability, he opens the door, now go in, I'm giving you the book, now go learn. Ledodi of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Hashem is teaching it to us. And you can't compare the two. Okay, so he says, B'chdei levar shnei inyonim begilui of Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim. To explain these two aspects in the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, shagilu delu kol echad v'echad gam la'achayim b'yosef. Now, so the Rebbe is explaining now. The Rebbe says two things about Elul. Number one, it awakens the far out people, Midbar, and it's only Nesinas Kayach. So he says, to explain, if you, in other words, you learn this Maamar, and then, first you learn Alter Rebbe's Maamar, and then you learn this Maamar, you see it's a different Maamar. The Alter Rebbe's Maamar is much different. And he says, in order to explain these two aspects of Yud Gimel Nisrachim, that the Gilui of El number one is L'chol Echad Ve'echad, even to the most distant people. And also, Afu Kagil Einem Eres Sa'adam Nesinas Kayach. How do you explain these two things? That it is only an opportunity to do it, and yet it stimulates the most distant people. How do you reconcile these two things? So he says, Mamshach by my the Alter Rebbe continues in the Maamar, Shagili the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim is Dogmas Melech Basada. This is why the Alter Rebbe brings down the Melech Basada. Meaning, the Mechaluk and Melech Basada or Melech Behecholoi, the difference between the king in the palace and the king in the field is two inyanim. It's two levels. Number one, Benegei ledarges hagilui, the revelation, meaning, it's getting late. Oh, it's late. Let me just say briefly, so we'll continue tomorrow. The king in the palace has all the splendor, the beauty, the crown. In the field, the king doesn't have all that splendor and grandeur and all that stuff with him. So the Gilui in the palace is much more than the Gilui in the field. Okay, let's continue.